How many geniuses are in prison?
Wow.
How much creativity is dead because we didn't take the effort when they were in elementary, middle, high school to bring out the best in them? How much have we lost? What things haven't been invented? What things don't we know about because it's gone
Yeah.
and not to be retrieved?
And we got a great guest today. We got one of the better, most dynamic leaders in the nonprofit space when it comes to leadership programs for youth. And her name is Dani Bethune. She is the executive director of C5 Texas Youth Foundation. They identify and screen and develop young teenage kids who start this program in like 8th or 9th grade. It's a 5-year leadership program. So it is very intentional. It's very structured and very strategic on how they train, how they equip, how they educate, and empower these kids. So I can't wait for you to hear this episode. Welcome, Dani Bethune, to Last in Line podcast. Dani Bethune, thank you and welcome to Last in Line podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
Man, I'm glad to touch base, glad to connect. Like I said, I reached out because I heard you on Darren Woodson and the One Shot podcast guys podcast a few, I don't know, maybe it's months now at this point. But I started looking into your organization and I was like, man, this is going to fit perfect for our series that we're doing called New Lens for Next Gen. And this is our next generation. We're focusing on, for the month of March, we're focusing on teenagers, kind of what they go through, the baggage, the issues, the challenges, and then kind of how we can help as adults, as leaders, help them navigate and get there down the path in the right direction. And you're perfect for this. So, man, maybe so the audience can feel like we're in the living room, sitting on the couch, having some coffee and know you. Let's get to know Dani. Talk to us about your kind of career path and what you do now.
Yeah, so I am originally from Fort Worth, Texas, went to UNT, Go Mean Green.
Yeah.
And kind of fell into nonprofit work. I came from a family of teachers and nonprofit leaders. My mother worked for a nonprofit organization. She taught, my grandparents taught. So I've always been in the work of just giving back to others my entire life. And so kind of fell into nonprofit work, have been doing it for the past years. And so it's been a true blessing. I've worked for several great organizations. So I've been able to kind of see the world from a social service lens for quite a bit of time, and have worked for homeless organizations, children's organizations, hospitals, social services that are provided all across the DFW Metroplex. So it's been a pleasure. I feel like that's my ministry. My ministry is giving back in that way.
I mean, and as we unfold this conversation, people are going to for sure see that and hear that, because I did in the first time I heard you speak, and I could just tell that was your heart. I mean, you live, breathe, eat, service, and that's what this podcast is, servant leadership. So that's what we're all about. Without that, we don't have a podcast. So you're fitting right in here into the mold that we've created. So I want to talk about, and I do this with every episode about the teenagers this month. I want to just kind of get your take and what you think. These are a couple years old, these stats, but it does kind of paint a picture and build a framework for where I want to go and why we're doing this, and maybe see where it lines up with what you're seeing in the work you do. So it says, so like in the next 24 hours, okay, X amount of kids will do this. So it's 1,400, actually probably now 1,500 teens will attempt suicide. In the next 24 hours, 15,000 will use drugs for the first time. 2,800 teen girls will get pregnant. 1 out of 4 kids in that space of teenage time grow up with a single mother. 1 out of 4. It might be higher than that. I don't know. It depends on where you are, obviously, but it might be higher than that. High school students with symptoms of depression have a 2 times of a dropout rate. That seems kind of intuitive, right? It's kind of self-explanatory, I would think. teen suicide is the second leading cause of death in ages 10 to 34. That's a mouthful, right? That's a lot. And those are probably conservative numbers if you fast forward to present day, which I couldn't find anything that was real current. But a couple of years ago, I mean, that's still alarming. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to agree with everything you said, and was going to ask you, was this pre or post COVID? Yeah, things have gotten worse for teenagers. The pressure for them to help and support their families, especially during the pandemic, was even more. Anxiety, depression, mental health issues. It was such an important factor that our leaders in our program, they actually did a case study on COVID-19 and teen mental health. So they understood the impact that it was having on them during the past 2 years or almost 3 that we've been in this pandemic. So yes, suicide rates, I definitely understand that and can believe that for sure. These youth are dealing with a lot. Not only are they having to try to manage and navigate school through a virtual environment, many of them had to start working to help support their family members when they lost their jobs, or the income was less than what they were used to, ensuring that they didn't lose their homes, reaching out for resources. Many of our youth have parents that don't speak English. So being a support to their parents as well, they took on a lot of adult responsibilities that for youth and children, we believe that they should be able to go outside and run around and play and be teenagers. And these children oftentimes are functioning adults, though they are not adults.
Yeah. And it's scary too, because if you parlay that with the information that they get on their devices and just some of the other distractions, I guess is the best word, man, I just don't know how they're juggling it. And let me ask you this too. I didn't plan on asking this, but maybe it just kind of came to me when you were talking. But we as adults look at this next generation and we're very quick to pass judgment, right? On, oh, we're in trouble, or you see the eye roll when you've got teenagers. Oh, well, bless your heart. We get that standard cookie cutter response when we think of a teenage group aggregately. Why can't we maybe take those blinders off and sort of empathize and maybe get in their skin for a minute? What do you think the barriers as adults to that are?
Yeah, I think from a cultural standpoint, we're used to doing that, right? We're used to saying that the older person has all the wisdom and they know everything. But I think one thing that we can take from this generation, they're resilient. Look at what they've gone through. They're resilient, they're resourceful. They have things at their disposal, but that we never had, and they know how to use it in ways that we don't. If anything, we should be taking a look at how they're doing what they're doing. I mean, you got to think about it. Millennials these days, they're going into jobs and saying, no, I'm not going to work over 40 hours. They're setting boundaries and boundaries that I think even us as adults have not even come to terms of how do we do that. So I think one thing that we can take from them is that they have a strength in them and they have a sense of self-awareness that we oftentimes didn't have. And we need to be able to take some of those from them and not look down on them, but see, because they are our future, we need to be making an investment instead of rolling our eyes and saying, oh, these kids, we're in bad trouble. We're actually not in bad shape. These kids are highly aware of what's going on in their community, going on in the world, and they have empathy for it in a way that I don't think we probably did when we were their age.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think it is going to take some sort of shift from our generation. I'll speak for me, and then even the ones kind of behind us. I mean, I'm no spring chicken. And so the ones that are having those teenagers just now coming in and they're in their late 30s, early 40s, something like that, I think they can take a lesson from what you just said too. So we're going to break this down a little bit. We kind of already talked about some of it, but symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment. Like, I think we're all quick to say it's raining, but not bring the umbrella to help out with that problem, right? Like, we're all good weather people. And so we're all good to pick out what's wrong in the world. Like, we won't have a problem sitting down at the barbershop and hearing about all that's wrong, right? Exactly. But I don't know how many times we hear good options for solutions and really putting ourselves into that mix and really taking an active role, which I know that's really what you've spent a lot of your life's work doing. But if we're talking about diagnosing what's going on, like we talked about some of the I guess would be symptoms, but some of the depression, the anxiety, the just overwhelmed hopelessness and just feeling like they're running in place and not getting any traction, the pregnancies that are out there, the dropout rates. So those are all, I think, symptoms. What would you say could be at the root of some of that maybe is preventable?
Yeah, education is one. I think
Mhm.
that's probably one of the main things, is us doing a better job of educating our youth and having truthful conversations with them, to talk about things in relation to their bodies, something we often try
Sure.
to ignore when we talk to youth. Also understanding mental health. I think there's a lot of time that we not really taken stock into mental health and the importance of taking care of ourselves, of just running around. And I think the generation that we come from, or I came from, it was a lot of this never taking care of yourself, always taking care of others, and trying to teach these young people how to take care of themselves and do the work so that they don't have to be depressed, so they don't have to have this social anxiety, that they don't have to feel like they're not a part of the crowd. And I think social media impacts that as well. There's this thing on social media that everybody wants to be popular, or everybody needs to know what everyone is doing. And if you're not doing what someone else is doing, then you're not doing anything. And it's like the mere fact that you're on this earth, you're doing a lot. And you have a lot to contribute to the world. And we need to start helping youth to understand that they all have something to contribute, and they all have a purpose. We just need to help them find that.
Yep. And I'm glad you said what you said when you addressed the conversation portion, and not only just about bodies and maybe some uncomfortable conversations, but a lot of times it's a single parent home, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times that parent may not even be around because they have two jobs, or if it's a dual parent home, maybe one's there but absent. Maybe we're not engaged. Like, talk to the parents right now, because you mentioned something that maybe needs to happen more of, hey, I'm going to go upstairs. Just because the house isn't on fire doesn't mean everything's okay. Like,
Exactly.
I'm going to go upstairs, I'm going to knock on the door, and I'm going to be like, hey, all right, it's not a yes or no question, not how was your day. It's tell me about your day, best and worst part of it, or something like that. So talk to the parents right now.
Yeah. So I'm a parent. I have a senior in high school and an eighth grader. So the youth in C5 are the youth that I see every day because they're my kids. And exactly right. Like, we need to have true conversations with our kids and spend that time, whether it's in the car or it's at the house. We live in a split level home. So I get the going upstairs. Sometimes
Sure.
you don't want to, but you need to make sure you're going up there, just checking on them
It's
and making
too
sure
quiet.
yeah,
It's
it's too
too
quiet.
quiet.
It's too quiet. And I think that's the other part too, right? We think that these kids now are quiet. They're quiet because they don't play with toys in the way we play with toys. They're on their computers with headphones. You're not going to hear a thing that's going on. You don't know what they're looking at, what they're reading. And so even when kids are making jokes, ask them what the joke is about, because these kids my daughter said something to my son the other
Different
day.
language.
I don't know. I didn't know what she said. I was like, what did that mean? In some ways it meant goodbye, but I don't know what it actually meant. So I would say we've got to spend more time communicating with our kids, no matter what the conversation is. And though our parents didn't do it with us, we have to
Right.
make the investment to do it with these young people now.
Man, it so true. And I'm with you on the whole language thing. I mean, of course, I'm the non-relevant dad who gets nothing and makes no sense, right? And all my dad jokes, of course. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I hit you on that. Some of that stuff just kind of flies right over. But yeah, so let's talk about C5. So you work for C5 Youth Foundation of Texas, right? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking early 2000s, mid 2000s, became independent from the original kind of parent structure that it was, correct?
Yes.
Founded by maybe the Coca-Cola, CEO of Coca-Cola.
Yes.
So give our audience a little bit of kind of dive us in more and get us into the weeds some on what C5 is.
Yeah.
Texas, of course.
Yeah. So thank you. C5 Texas, of
That's
course.
right.
And so C5 Texas is a 5-year youth leadership development program. It started, like you said, out of Coca-Cola. The CEO, John Alms, at the time had a ranch out in Wyoming. He was taking inner city youth out of LA to his ranch and doing fun stuff, right? They're kayaking, they're canoeing, they're horseback riding, they're hiking. Like, he's doing all this work with them, but he's teaching them leadership as a part, team building, communication, negotiation, conflict resolution, all these soft skills that oftentimes adults don't even have. He was teaching these young people that, and then it's saying to them, now take what you've learned out here back to your community. Take this
Wow.
back to your school. Take this back to your family and implement what you're learning so that you can have an impact across the world, right? So now we have C5 Texas, and we're focused on leadership development, college and career, community action, social awareness, personal development, in an effort to help young people get to college, pursue a life that they want, and try to break some of this poverty that we're seeing across our country to give young people and their families better lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, that was, in a nutshell, that was like perfect. That might have been the first 3 pages of the website, if you ask me. Like, that was verbatim. No, but I do want to. So the mission it talks about, I'm going to read it right here, is to
Yeah.
change the odds for high potential youth. So clearly, there are some diamonds in the rough, for lack of a better term, of high potential youth in some environments that maybe have the odds stacked against them.
Exactly.
So give us an idea of what kind of the ideal, you mentioned a leadership program, and this isn't a like sleepover 2-day program. This is it's not like a lock-in for the weekend. This is a 5-year program, correct?
Yes.
And there's a pretty diligent process in identifying and screening and choosing. Am I right?
It is. It is.
You go
So
into that?
we're looking for the diamond in the rough. We're not looking for the kid that is like all out, the most popular, the most seen, or even the kid that just is never at school. We're looking for that kid that goes unnoticed, that student that is like a BC average student, probably sitting in the back of the room. Nobody's really talking to them as much, or they do talk, but they're highly introverted. But a teacher sees something in them that they know they just need a push. They just need some oomph. They have everything they need to be successful, but they don't have the support to do so. So those are the kids we look for. They're nominated to us by a teacher, a counselor, a principal, a coach, someone who knows this child needs support. And then from there, yeah, it becomes a little bit, there's work to be done. They have to submit an application. They submit a report card, a letter of recommendation, but we're also trying to put them in the mind frame of what it's like to go to college. What steps does it take you to go to college? They are interviewed. So we're trying to help them how to have those interpersonal skills that they oftentimes lack, and being able to talk about themselves. I think that's one important thing. We talk about ourselves in a way that it's always work related, right? Every time we talk about it, it's the work that we've done, the school that we've graduated from, but really, who are you as a person? And that's what we want to learn about you. And then once we do that, we select a group of kids that will start their C5 journey with us and will remain in the program for 5 years.
So, yeah, I mean, that to me, that sounds like a huge undertaking, because you obviously want to include as many people as you can. Like, nobody wants to be left behind. And I'm sure there's some people that are right on that line that just don't make the cut, and they might be a diamond in the rough too. That's got to be a hard selection process. But I mean, I know
I'm happy I don't do it alone.
Oh my gosh.
I don't do it.
Hey, for the guy that probably was in that B average range, and thanks on behalf of all of us that you don't pick the most popular, best looking, most athletic person. Like, I think that's pretty cool, because there are a group in that, I don't even think middle of the pack is the word, but in that kind of group that's just kind of going with the current, but they're keeping their head up. They're keeping, staying out of trouble, keeping their nose clean.
But at any moment, that kid could go the opposite direction.
Of course.
All it takes is one slide to the left or one slide to the right, depending on who they're hanging out with, what they're doing. That high potential can be lost. How many geniuses are in prison?
Wow.
How much creativity is dead because we didn't take the effort when they were in elementary, middle, high school to bring out the best in them? How much have we lost? What things haven't been invented? What things don't we know about because it's gone and not to be retrieved?
Hey, do yourself a favor when you get done listening to this episode and go check out my sponsors on their websites. Those links will be in the show notes, but I want to thank the following for supporting Last in Line podcast. I want to thank Armored Nation Coffee. I want to thank the folks at Do Work That Matters. I want to thank Kevin Fulton over at Lead Like Lions. Thank you to Gridiron Coffee. And thank you to Cowboy Revolution Apparel. Those are just a few, and we're adding to the list, but these are ones who have started with us at ground zero and are sticking with us till the end, hopefully. So go check out their website, get some of their products. Now back to the show. And so I heard you say that the teachers are probably an integral part of communication with you because they identify. Is that kind of the grassroots of where this all, like, the candidates come from? Is the teacher says,
yeah.
hey, I got my eye on this one. Like, I can see their heart, and it may
Yes.
not manifest on paper. So I think there's something there.
Yes, exactly. It's working with teachers and counselors and principals who know the students, even working with other nonprofit organizations and churches of students, of kids that you're seeing. And you're like, that youth pastor is sitting there like, this kid is amazing, but no one's noticing what he's capable of, what she's capable of doing. And there are millions of kids out here in our community that are that. So yes, it does make it hard to select, which is why there's a selection committee and not Dani by herself making a decision.
Can't there be like a C5.5 for that group?
I know, right? A C5.25, right? Like, but we got you.
Yeah. So I won't take it personal, and I'll speak for the rest of the Houston area community when I say there's not a chapter or a section of C5 in Houston. It's just Texas.
And we want it there. So there is, in our strategic plan, there is a plan to ultimately have a C5 Texas in the Houston area. So
okay. I will send you a resume at the end of this call.
Yes, please do. Well, you had a pandemic that kind of halted, planning and moving and doing things that you want to do and growth. So we have to be mindful of that.
So we were talking about, symptoms diagnosis, and then the final kind of where the gavel hits the hardest is on treatment, right? And so we talked about, like, you're part of this remedy. You're part of the solution. You're not just part of the barbershop quartet that's complaining all the time, right? So you're part of this solution. And I've looked at you have listed 5 primary outcomes on your website. And so someone listening to this is like, oh man, this sounds awesome. Like they identify this group and they're like, this is the group that's going to change the world potentially. And they're going to come out with life skills and leadership skills and a network already of those same people that are with them. So if I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, so how do they know if they actually accomplished what they wanted to with these folks? And so here's what I'm going to read these outcomes that y'all are, what good looks like. So graduate from high school, of course, pursue college or meaningful employment, a positive contribution to the community, which we're going to talk about how they quantify it, how you actually know that. Respect human diversity and capable of living and working in a diverse environment, community. Develop and maintain positive relationships with adults and other youth. Acquire leadership skills in the areas of self-awareness, confidence, communication, group effectiveness, organization, decision-making, and problem solving. So I went through those quick, but there's a matrix somewhere. I know there's a list, and I know is that through this whole 5, you don't notice this in a week. This is over a 5-year span, right? So talk to me about somebody that's at the end of that journey and they're in their senior year and they've been with you for 4.5 years or so. How would I be able to pick them out of the group that they were with you for 5 years?
Yeah. So one thing that is that leader is able to walk into a room and immediately start connecting with folks in the room because they've had the opportunity to be around strangers and have to make a connection.
That's huge.
They understand how to build a community. So they know how to come into a room and let's say there's a lot of talking going on or there's a decision that needs to be made. They know how to go in the room and help take charge, but do it in a respectful way and still respect everybody's opinion on what's taking place and come to a valuable conclusion of how to move forward. They know how to put work into action because they've been a part of planning activities the entire 5 years they've been here. They've been responsible for managing a budget. So when they see you, they're able to say, hey, we're going to do this, but this is kind of the way it's going to be outlined. They're able to also say, I've graduated from college, but I've been accepted into 10 different colleges. I've applied to 15. I have scholarships to go to these various schools. And this is what I'm majoring in. And this is what I want to do. This is how you know a C5 leader because they've received everything they need to connect career to college. They've been able to know that I can do public speaking. I am very self-aware of what I need to change. When I talk to these kids on a monthly basis, if they are not passing a class, they then understand, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know the reason why I'm not passing. I also am going to talk to my peers about a solution. And if they go to school with me, who's the other teacher I can talk to? And are you willing to work with me to help me? They don't mind asking for help. And I think a lot of times that is the basis of why people struggle so much, because they don't know how best to ask for help. And they're not self-aware enough about themselves to understand the help that's needed. So this is how you know a C5 leader.
Man, yeah. And man, you got the wheels turning. So I'm thinking if I get accepted in the 9th grade or 8th grade, whatever. So whatever that 5, I'm a part of a community and a network instantly. So I don't know how many would you say are in that would be in my class, so to speak, if I got accepted in it?
Yeah. So you would have about almost 70 students in the class with you.
70 students.
Yeah. All across the DFW Metroplex. So you've got kids that go to schools that you don't go to, don't even know about.
So I've got, if I'm thinking about masterminds that are out there, that's a big hot topic, that those masterminds, people are connecting online and it's a network. They've got instantaneous equity when it comes to networking and personal relationship. Like they're developing, and then they've gone through this, I don't know, 5-year boot camp almost. At the end, they are like a fraternity of brothers and sisters who knows where that can take them. But I mean, when you said they can walk in a room and start talking to people and carry themselves, initiate, like that is at least 50% of the battle in the workforce. Like if you can nail that, you're golden. And so they've got other skills too. So you guys you take them on trips, I know, and you guys do, like, you get outside, get in the wilderness, you guys get them on certain programs and different things, just kind of regimens to create routine and good habits. So I assume that study habits come along, to your point about the person that might be struggling. I assume that's just an automatic byproduct, even if that's not something you guys are checking off the list. We taught them how to study, but if they're going to college, you know what I mean? So I guarantee you that's a byproduct of it. Let me ask you this too, along this time of this 5 years, like you're watching and you've been with them long enough to kind of see what works, what doesn't. Is there anything you would tweak about maybe the current program that you're trying to maybe fold in as new procedure, or have you noticed some themes along the way? Tell us where you guys may have, because we're talking all good about you, right? But I want to pick one thing that maybe you think, hey, I think we had to tweak this, and this is why we noticed this.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say one thing that we tweaked was the mental health portion. That wasn't a part, that it was a part of the program, but wasn't intentional. And so during the pandemic, we really took another focus on how do we help our leaders from a mental health perspective. And that's something that now every month when we talk to them, we're focused on self-care, mental health, meditation, some yoga, some things that we can do to help them to decompress and take time just for themselves. That was a reality. I think the other one is making sure that we have the right careers, the right people coming in to talk to our leaders based on what they want, not what we think they should have. I think that's the other part, like surveying them and saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then identifying those folks in those careers that do that and expanding their career base. We automatically think the 2 highest paying careers to us are doctors and lawyers, not knowing that there is a plethora of careers out here that provide a livable wage, that you may not become wealthy, but you can definitely take care of your family.
Yes, there are. And then they're already disqualified once they have these expectations, to your point about lawyers and doctors. Like a group of them, self included, like if I thought that was the only way I was going to be able to sustain a lifestyle, I would be frustrated and hopeless, So it's awesome that you're opening up this whole world to them that really caters to what they're good at, like what they're passionate about, what their gifts are, line those up and then push them, right? And get out of the way and let them fly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
And we
I
do it
guess,
early, John.
yeah, go
I think
ahead.
that's the other part. We do it early, right? And it can change for a leader throughout the time frame, but we're still constantly putting that connection back to college and career and your interests and your skills. Like we're constantly doing this career survey with them to really get it. It's going to change, and that's fine. But we always want to make sure there's a plan. And so we do a lot of goal setting with the leaders as
Yeah.
well, so that no matter what the plan, if the plan changes, you have a way to go.
Yeah. That's great. That's too good.
Yeah.
That's too good. So how do you, as they finish the program, you've got all these exceptional people now that are going into the workforce. I have two questions. Do you keep up with them? Is there like an alumni, like a class reunion, they're still connecting but do they ever kind of get back together and be like, hey, how's it going? And part two to that is, how many of those kids end up volunteering and pouring back into the system, your system?
So yes and yes. So yes, we do have a way that we connect with them through our alumni. Also, they still keep up with the group meets and the text messages and the way that they communicated with each other while they were in the program. That's still going on. So that it's very much like a small fraternity. So they're keeping in contact with one another quite often, as well as us keeping in contact with them too. The other part is they do come back and volunteer. So when we have activities over the school year, they're there helping volunteer. For the summer, a lot of them come back and work with us as summer staff. And it's a great thing for them to do because they know the program, they know their program, they know what we're trying to achieve. And so they're able to help make that connection for us too. So yes, we love our alumni. We love for them to come back and support the work we do.
No, yeah. And I almost knew the answer to those questions already, because it just sounds like it stands to reason that would happen. And technology, of course, they can be connected anytime. So do you guys do placement as well? Like, so when they graduate college, granted they've got, college and career, they've got all these other resources at college, hopefully, that are getting them out there. But are you guys involved with people throughout business world within the community of Fort Worth and Dallas area? Like, are you connected with those employers to where this person graduates and then you're like, hey, maybe interview them type?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're working on, especially over this pandemic. There's been so many people who've left their jobs, not there. So really trying to build up a way that we are a pipeline. I would say not only are we a pipeline from helping kids go from middle to high school to college, but ultimately college to career, whether that's through an internship, job shadowing. We are definitely looking to build that portion of our programming for our leaders as well and our alumni.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'd love to see where that goes, because that kind of completes the cycle, doesn't it? Like, it kind of full circle, like that kind of ties it all together. And so that would be really cool to have that grow legs. I mean, so the treatment, of course, we talk about diagnosis, symptoms, and treatment, and that sounds like a really big part of the treatment for kids that, are maybe in that limbo stage of being one of those statistics, right? Maybe, like you said, they could go one of two directions. And if they're middle of the pack and flying under the radar, I don't know what the odds are, but there are odds that stack against them in the wrong direction. So I think this is amazing treatment option for sure. And, talk to us, I guess, as we kind of close up here. I just want to get your opinion on, are our teenagers, if we go back to this whole theme, like, what do you see on the horizon for teenagers? So apart from the ones you bring into the program, like we said, there's a group that might be on that bubble and just don't quite. So what are your thoughts on that group, and kind of talk to an audience right now whose kid may not come to your program, but they're right in that bubble stage, and talk to a parent right now of what they can do to sort of make this thing go the right direction.
Yeah, so I would say don't be solely reliant on the school districts. They are overwhelmed. So I would say anything, get your child involved in a program like C5 or some other out of school program that can help support your child. I think for parents that may not have gone to college themselves, you need the additional support. There are people and organizations out here that are great resources to your children and to your family. Use them to your advantage, because they're there to help you. They want to see your kids do well. If you're not talking to your child, please start talking to your child. And if there is something they're talking about that you don't understand, Google is officially everyone's best friend now, where there is nothing that you cannot find out or process through Google. So spend that time communicating with them, talking to them. And even if it's only 5 minutes that you have, do it. If you're brushing your teeth, let them come in and talk to you about their entire day and then say, hey, baby, I love you. And that's the other part I would say. Tell your children you love them. You love them and you support them. I think so many kids nowadays don't have that level of attention and support, so they seek it in so many other places, which is why we have teenage pregnancy, which is why we have children on drugs, which is why we have children committing suicide. They don't feel like they're being seen. See your babies and allow others to see your babies and pour into them as well.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said talk to them while they're brushing their teeth, because they can't really talk back at that point. So they're a captive audience. No, it's a great point. Yeah. So, okay. This hit me last minute. This kind of question hit me real quick. Not that you can use this as part of your criteria for selection at all, because of,
well, let me hear it, John.
Kind of the world we live in. But what are you guys incorporating aside from just living it on a daily basis? This is a faith-based podcast. Are you seeing a lot of your students are already believers and already kids that are involved in church? You mentioned some of the church youth pastors are sending you people. Are you seeing that as they go through this process, maybe is there a faith element that just kind of comes out unintentionally, or are you seeing a common denominator there?
No, there is a faith element that comes out of the program unintentionally. I think all of our outcomes, making a positive contribution to your community, respecting human diversity, graduating, success, all of that comes out just naturally. There are some, during the summer camp program, every day we read like a daily verse, and there are some scripture verses that are placed into that gives our youth. So though we're not a faith-based organization ourselves, I see that a lot of times our kids are hanging on to a sense of faith somewhere, and whether that faith is in themselves or in a higher power that they believe in, or if they believe in God, they are trying to challenge themselves to know that they can get over anything. And I think that challenge ready part is the part that it helps you to know is faith unseen.
Yeah.
So them being challenge ready is faith unseen. It's saying when the challenge comes my way, I'm going to be ready. Though I don't even know what the challenge is or what the solution is, I'm going to be ready for it when it takes place. So I think that's the way we kind of show up.
Awesome. Yeah, I can tell it comes out. I mean, you may not even have to say much. It all just kind of comes out in the way you guys operate and conduct yourselves. Hey, so before I let you go, tell us where to go to find the website, and maybe, I don't know if somebody wants to get involved, or maybe even apply their child to the program and see what's out there.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say go to www.c5texas.org if you want to volunteer with us. And if you're down in the Houston area, listen, we go to a camp in Killeen. So we're not that far away from you. You are definitely welcome to come and be a part of the work that we're doing. We do a lot of our stuff on the weekends. So if somebody wants to drive up or drive down and volunteer with us, they can. Wow. That's on our website as well. If you are interested in working for C5, listen, we would love to have you be a part of the work that we do at our organization. And then if you are one of those people that say, hey, I don't have time, I have a lot of talent, but I have more treasure, we also take your donations as well. So just ask you to go to our website at www.c5texas.org.
Man, there you go. I mean, we have no excuse now. There's
none.
Some way we can touch C5. There's some way we can do it. So, hey, Dani, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to see you, get to know you, meet you, hear your heart, hear the vision, hear how you guys are actually doing something about some of the challenges that are out there. And the title of this new lens for next gen, you guys are actually providing that lens that creates hope. It empowers them, and it allows them to kind of walk in the fullness of their gifts and who they're called to be. So with that, on behalf of my audience, thank you. She's been Dani Bethune. We've been Last in Line. Be blessed.